Hi, this Tech Tuesday is about Moodle activity completions and Moodle restrictions. And these two are highly related to each other, and they're both new in the newer version of Moodle that we're using now. Moodle activity completion allows you to track the completion of any activity that you have posted in your Moodle class and whether students have done, viewed, participated in, completed any given link or activity, test, quiz, anything you want to. You can track their completion. Moodle activity completion can be used for a number of things. It can be used to issue badges. It can be used to just give you a report of what's been done. It can be used to manage restrictions that you can then put on it. So we're going to talk about what activity completion is first, and then we're going to talk about the things that it leads to in Moodle that we can do. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my Moodle course. By default, Moodle class does not have the ability to track activities. So the first thing you want to do, if you'd like to use Moodle activity completion, is turn it on. And so no matter what class you're in, if you go to Edit Settings, and then if I go down in the settings, one of the options down here is completion tracking. And if I click on there to open it up, I need to change the default no into a yes to enable completion tracking. Now that's our first step. When I've done that, nothing changes in Moodle. You won't see anything magically happen. It just allows you then to track the completion of things in Moodle. So first you need to change that to a yes. Now once you have that as a yes, now I have the ability to track things and get reports on things that have been completed. The reports are just under the report section, and one of them says activity completion. Now I'm going to click on this, and there's a lot of things that are being tracked in my particular class. So as I go down here, you can see what things are done under the check mark and what things are not. Nothing will show up on your report until you start tracking individual items. So you can see that I've been doing it for a while and I've got a lot of things that I'm tracking. You won't have anything there, but that's where you will see it once you start tracking the completion of items. I'm going to go down to the bottom of my course where I know I haven't turned anything on yet to show you how to turn activity completion on. So I'm down at chapter 15. I'm nowhere close to that yet. And I'm going to show you on a couple different modules how you can turn on the tracking of those activities. So if I go into this first I can statement, and all this is a page that students can read what the I can statements for this chapter are. And in the past, we've had no way to know if they ever even looked at the page. Because it's just a web page. There's no completion to it in the past, but now there is. So I can go to Edit Settings now, and this again is just a page. There's no assignment, there's no gradebook item, there's nothing connected to it, but I can now track whether they actually went and read those things. So I go to Edit Settings, and down here under this, one of the things that I've got now that showed up because I turned activity completion on is activity completion. So when I click on that, it says by default do not indicate completion, but I have options now. So if I go to this drop down, I have two options. Number one is students can manually mark the activity as completed. If I do that, there becomes a little checkbox on the Moodle page that they have to click on to say, yes, I've done it. Or I can say, it's complete when some condition is met, and I'm going to click on that one. And the condition is, student must view this activity completed. So, if a student comes to this page and looks at it, now, I don't have a way of saying how long they looked at it. I don't know whether they were there for 15 seconds or 15 minutes, but I at least know they clicked on the link. So on the most basic setting, activity completion can just say, hey, they went to the page. I know they went to the page. Okay, so that's what that one is. And if I say students must mark, then I'll show you what that's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and say save and return to course. And now when I'm back here at the course, if I go on that chapter again, you can see there's a little box around it. Now it's a hashed box, meaning they can't control when they get it completed. They have to do something to get it completed. If I went and changed that setting to the other one on activity completion that says, I got to unlock it because there we go. I'm back here again. It must mark, and now when I save and return to course, and I look at that same thing, now it's a solid checks box. And the difference is now a student goes, boom, I did that. And you can see it's checked. And they have to check every one that they did to say they did it. But in the other way, they don't have a choice. It's automatically checked. And it's saying unlock completion because someone's already completed it, me. I have to unlock it and saying that, hey, we're going to erase everything and go back to nothing's completed. So anyways, so show activities complete when the conditions are met, and again, it means they have to see it. So that's the option on a basic one, that you can say it's completed when they viewed it. Okay, so that's that, and you can see it's now a dashed line. Every kind of thing you can do in Moodle kind of has different options of activity completion. Now, if it's just a resource, like this one is, a web page or a book or a link, there aren't a lot of options because there's no way to grade completion. It's just, did they click on it? Did they go to it? But the next one here is a feedback activity, so it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to go to edit settings on that, and I'm going to go down to activity completion. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say, again, you have two options always on this top one. Well, three. Do not track, manually track, or track it when some condition is met. Now, the condition in here is view. Now I have choices. Student must view it to complete, which is the same as the other one, or view is completed if the feedback is submitted. So I don't care if they looked at the feedback. I want them to do the feedback. So until they do this survey, it's not completed. So that's the option on this one, is that I want to view as completed when it's submitted. I could just make them look at it. So now if I go and return back to the course, now that one's going to have a checked or a hashed box around it for that. So that's, you can see that the completion types are different. Again, I'm going to show you the different ways we can do completion because there's some other things here obviously that we haven't gotten to yet, but you have choices on how you want to say it's completed. So here we're going to go to the chapter 7 reading. This is an actual activity, so there are going to be some different things on an activity that I have under activity completion. Okay, again, I'm going to say show is complete when some condition is met. And now, what are the conditions? Do they just have to view it? Do they have to get a grade on it? Do they have to submit it? So I'm going to say, for instance, on this one, they have to receive a grade to be complete. In other words, it's not complete till I've graded it and set it complete. You could just as easily say, hey, as soon as they've submitted it, it's complete. In other words, they turned in their homework. I may not have graded it, but they've turned it in, so it's complete when they've turned it in, or in this case, it's not complete until I have graded it and said it's complete. It's another option available on the tracking. And you can see these different things have different options for completion. Again, I can go back there and say, hey, they got to view it. And if I check all these things, it means all those things have to be done. Now, how could they submit it if they didn't view it? That's impossible. How could they, how could I get a grade if they didn't submit anything? So they're kind of redundant a little bit because if I've given them a grade, they've obviously viewed it, they've obviously submitted. But if you check mark more than one, all of those things have to be done for the condition to be met, for it to be complete. So I'm going to hit save and return to course and look back at that one now. And so now you can see that around there. Now the quiz is an interesting one, and I'm going to go to the settings on that and go down here to, again, activity completion. And I'm going to go to show activities complete when a condition is met. Now you can say, hey, when it's graded, or you can say when it's got a passing grade, or you can say or all attempts are completed. And how does this fall in? I've got some formative things that I'm saying that you have to get a 90% on that item before you're done with it, or before you can move on. So I also might have but no more than 5 attempts. So I'm going to require a passing grade or all the attempts are complete. Obviously, if they get a passing grade, that's done. Now, this is interesting because passing grade is not and has nothing to do with what's passing as far as the grade scale. You set what a passing grade is up here. So what's the grade to pass this? And that's not that it has nothing to do with A, B, C, D. That has to do with completing the activity and moving on. So this particular quiz, I'm going to open in a new page. This quiz is worth 100 points. I got that there. It's worth 100 points. So I'm saying in order to move on, maybe I'm going to require 80%. So you need 80 points before this activity says it's complete. There are some reasons you might want to do that. If you've got it as a formative event that you want them to keep taking before they get the summative thing, it might be that in some cases I'm not going to consider it complete until they've got that level of knowledge to move on to the next section. Or one of the things we do with gamification in Moodle is we give out badges and levels and let people level up. That's all part of this completing activities as well. So when I say require a passing grade, again, it's not with the, it's what this grade to pass is up here under the grade in the quiz itself. So I might do that, and again, I might say passing grade or until all attempts are complete. If I give them 5 or 6 or 10 attempts to do it, there's some point where I said, yeah, you're done with this activity. I don't like doing that personally, so I just say require a passing grade to make it complete, which means if they only get to take it once, they may never have this complete, and it'll show in my report that, hey, that person never got that level or whatever. So that's completion tracking, and it allows a couple of things to happen. It allows us to do that completion to have it affect other things, and it also allows that completion then to be in this report. Under reports and activity completion, which we could do by name. We could do it by participant. If I want to just take all my other names away from there and just have my bogus student in there, you can see it's got all these things out here. And again, the solid ones, they say they're complete on their own. The dash ones have some kind of check it does to say whether it's complete on the activity or not. So what does activity completion do for us other than this one report that really doesn't have a lot of utility for me? It kind of lets me see where there are holes and who didn't do stuff and things that maybe weren't turned in or weren't submitted. It does that, and it gives me a nice view of that. And obviously you can see on there it allows me to download stuff as well. But it doesn't really do a lot per se as far as what do I get back from that when it's done. So that brings the next thing, which is Moodle restrictions, but there's other things besides Moodle restrictions as well that we can do with that. And two of those things that I'm talking about when we talk about gamification of Moodle is really badges and levels. And I'm going to show you a couple of those things that can be done just because of activity completion. I should have that up there. Activity completion allows those things, and on top of that it allows restrictions and what those are going to do for us. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about badges and levels real fast. Badges are things you can have Moodle issue students for completing things when they get things done. For instance, I'm going to go to this badge. It's under badges and manage badges. So if my students successfully complete these things, they automatically get a badge called Basic Computing. And 3 of my students have gotten that badge, and it automatically shows up as a badge issued to them under the badges, and it just kind of magically appears for students. So one of the things that you've got over here, you can see on my page, it's a block called Latest Badges. I don't get badges, so that's why it doesn't show that. But if I was logged on as another student, it would show what other badge they got issued. So I just got logged in as one of my students, Mr. Christensen. And if you look over on the side now, he got a badge for Linux, Microsoft OS's, and GUI's Oh My. He got a badge called Basic Computing, and he got one as a class orienteer. Those are three of the badges that just showed up because he got certain things done. If you look over here on the left-hand side, he's attained level 6 in my class. Again, that's part of the gamification of Moodle. Things just kind of happen for them, and students automatically level up for successfully completing certain things in the class. So that's kind of what the restrictions can do for you too. Well, the way that works is that under these badges, I can create badges and say what criteria they have to do. Now, all these criteria have to do with those activity completion things. So if I was to add a new badge, say when this is for the motherboard section, I could say there's a badge called Motherboard Expert, and I add a description of what I think that is for, and I would add that in there. And then I have to add some kind of an image that they're going to get on their page. You can look for Google Images, you can drop them in there. It has to be a relatively small image, 256K. I try to make them all about the same size, and I drop them in there. And then I said, so I'm going to create this badge, and then it's going to say, well, who gets the badge? Oh, I didn't do an image. Let me grab an image real fast. Okay, and I changed it to Motherboard Wizard instead because I found a little cartoony wizard guy. Okay, so now we add criteria to those badges, and I can say, oh, I can manually issue it. I can say when you're done with the whole course, or I can say, hey, I want you to complete some activities. So in order to get that done, you have to do, and I can check, you can see all the activities that I'm tracking right now, and I can go through and pick those things that I want you to be able to do to get it. So for instance, let me find my motherboard stuff. Okay, let's say I want you to make sure you've done that and that and that. You've checked the ICANNs, you've done the practice quiz, you did the CPU socket, you took the test, you did the project. So all those things have to be completed. And I'm going to say this currently complete when all, you can say any or you can say all of these have been done. And I'm going to hit save. So now you have to have done all those motherboard things to completion. And maybe the test said you had to get an 85%. So you're not going to get the badge just because you finished the test. You're going to get the badge because you completed the test within those parameters that I have set for activity completion. I can make it so it automatically gives you some cool message, and the default is here. Congratulations, you earned a badge. You have been awarded the badge, and it puts the badge name in there. More information, this badge can be found, blah, gives you that. That's the default message. You can change that if you want to. So I've got this whole overview. So now they're going to get a badge called Motherboard Wizard. I would have the whole description in there. I usually put my email into the contact in there, and it does all those things. And when I'm done setting it all up, I hit Enable Access, which I'm not going to do now because I really want to check those things a little better than this. But I'm going to go ahead and make this one. We just finished this chapter, so that'd be good for me to do. I've actually been a little remiss on those. But that's one of the things that activity completion lets you do. Levels is a totally separate thing, and I talk about that on the Moodle gamification course. I really want to talk about restrictions next, which is one of the great things about activity completion. As we use Moodle, and as you build a Moodle course, you end up having to go back every year and reset up this and reset up that, and I have to change the dates and I have to do that in order to get the flow going for the new year. One of the things activity completion and restrictions let you do is to make it so you don't have to do that. For instance, let's go down here to the next chapter we've got going on. My next chapter, we're about ready to go into managing memory. That whole section you can see is grayed out. Maybe I don't want it to be seen by students until we're done with the previous chapter. And it used to be what I would do is we'd get to that section and I would unhide that section. I'm going to go ahead and turn editing on. And I'm going to go back to my whole course. And we know that we can hide and unhide whole sections. So we're in this section here, and I could have this whole topic, chapter 5, hidden, and then I have to go in and unhide it when we're done. Or I can use restrictions on that whole section. And so that's the first thing I usually do. I'm going to show this topic. And I'm going to say, as soon as we're finished with chapter 4B, which is going to be next class, they're going to take this chapter 3 CPU test. So I'm going to make a restriction for this based on that. So here's how we do it. I'm going to edit the topic. And just like there's activity completion, which there isn't on whole sections, now there's a whole thing called restrict access. And right now there's no restriction, but I'm going to add one. I'm going to say, and here's my different options. You can do it based on dates, grades, groups, profiles. You can do all kinds of restrictions. So you could set up whole sections that are for your advanced students, that you want, oh, my A and B students are going to see this, my C and D students are going to see this, or you can do it based on a date, or you can say that, oh, Orange 1 gets to see this section because that's where they are, and Orange 2 gets to see this section. So you can see all these different restrictions, but I'm going to do activity completion. So it says choose your activity, and I'm going to say that my chapter 3 test, right, there we go, I'm sorry, chapter 4, so it's, I put this quarter up front, so quarter 3, chapter 4 CPU test must be marked complete, or I can say must not be. I could say must have a passing grade, or even must have a failing grade. So you can have intervention activities automatically set up so that if a student fails the test, a whole new block on Moodle opens up for them to get intervention for that test. Nobody else sees it. Only the students that failed it sees it. Or the opposite, you can say only students that pass. I'm going to say completed with, I'm just going to say must be marked complete. So as soon as they've taken that test, it's going to open up. And if I poke out the eye right here, it means they don't even see that this section exists in Moodle until they finish that test. And the very minute they finish that test, there's a whole new section that opens up for them. This is also part of gamification. Gamification isn't about playing games. It's about making it game-like, in that certain things predicate certain other things happening. It's that you do something and there's an effect. There's cause and effect on things. It's not just this big page that's there static all the time. They uncover learning in their class, and that's part of what gamification is about. So just doing basic activity completion and restrictions is in fact a little bit of gamification in a course, but it makes it really nice for me that I can go through and say I don't have to go and poke it in the eyeball. I don't have to unhide it. When next year starts, they're not going to see anything but the base Moodle block that I want them to see, and when they've completed those things, it just uncovers the next one, and when we've completed that one, it just uncovers the next one, and there's no me going in and having to uncheck, unblock, unhide. Those things just happen as they go automatically with activity completion. So I'm going to say student must do the following. They have to completed the previous chapter's test. Because I poked it in the eye, it means it's hidden until otherwise. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Save Changes. And I could have multiple ones. I could say also anytime after January, I'm going to say 20 January, and I'm going to add that one. Now it says, whoa, you got more than one. Do they have to match all of them or any of them? Now I said any, which means after January 20th, whether they've passed or not, it's going to show up. So if somebody didn't show up for the test on Thursday, and they show up the following Monday, and we're working on something new, it's already there for them too. They still have to make up the test, obviously. But so you can add multiple things. You can say all kinds of things to restrict on. And it can be, in this case, any of the following or all of the following have to have happened. So I could say, well, you took the test and it's after that date if I wanted to. So I'm going to set Save Changes. And now when I go back here and I look down here, at this one, it says this block is not available, it's hidden, unless any of the following are complete. The activity chapter 4 CPU test is marked complete, or it is after January 20th, 2017. Now, obviously, I would have to reset this date every year. But the other thing, it's just hidden until that's the case. So I don't actually like having the date thing there. I'm going to go ahead and edit that again and take that out, because then next year it would all be free. And just to take it out, I just click the little X, and now, oh, I did the wrong one. Bad on me. Whoops. Okay, so I got to re-add my description, activity completion, down here, CPU test, and I have it poked in the eye. Okay, so we're back to what I had before. In other words, every year now, this one's automatically just going to show up when they finish the previous chapter. So there's chapter 4, and chapter 5 isn't going to show up until chapter 4 is done. And I can do other restrictions too. I want them to read this ICANN statements before they take the self-assessment. Well, they haven't even read them. So I'm going to do that. That's how I'm going to use this activity completion. So I'm going to go into the settings for this, and I'm going to say activity completion. I'm going to say it's complete when they viewed it. And then the very following thing, wish I was just in here, that'd make it easier for me. There we go. Now the following thing, I'm going to have them do the self-assessment. Now the self-assessment, I'm going to say it's complete when the feedback's submitted, because I use that as a completion for something else. And as a restriction, I'm going to say they don't even see this until they've read the, where am I at? The ICANNs for chapter 5. So they don't see this until the ICANNs. Maybe I want them to see it, and they see that they can't do it until they've read the ICANNs. So I'm going to have that. So now they can't do it until they've read the ICANNs, and when they do it, they get completion on this too. I'm going to go back to the course, and you'll see what that looks like. So now it says this block isn't available to them. They don't see these things. They just show up. When this shows up, they'll see those ICANNs, but this is hidden until the activity ICANN chapter 5 is marked complete. And they can't mark that complete. They have to actually go to it for it to be marked complete. So you can see how you can make things roll out with activity completions and restrictions slowly over time by setting it up. And I only have to set it up once. And you're going to say, wow, that's a lot of work. Well, it would be a lot of work if I did it all at one time. If I went through and said, I'm going to do this for my entire class, then it would be a lot of work. However, if I just do this one thing, if I hide this one until that test is done, now I've got all of chapter 4 to massage chapter 5 so that when we start chapter 5, it's done. And the same thing happens for chapter 6. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom of this section, and I'm going to go to the chapter 3 test. I'm going to go ahead and set activity completion on this one. Students complete when they get a grade. Okay, I already set that up. So, and I said they have to get a passing grade as well. So that one's set up for chapter 5. So now on chapter 6, if I haven't already done it, which I may already have, I don't know how far I got with setting it up on my own stuff. There's 4 or 5. Oh, that's right. I get rid of 6. It's 7 next. So 7 is not going. I already did it. They can't see it. It's hidden. Actually, I don't think I did say it was hidden. I didn't. Okay, or I did. It's plugged in. Okay. So until they finish chapter 5, they're not going to see the next chapter, chapter 7. So you can see you have time to do it. It's a slow rollout thing, but you can do it for everything in every chapter. And you can see that I haven't done it in all of this chapter yet. In fact, I'm going to go back to this chapter where my next one is. So I'm playing with something that makes sense for me to play with. So I've got this self-assessment. You've got to read the ICANNs. You've got to take the self-assessment. And then maybe the next thing we do is this number 1 activity, and I'm not going to let you do that until you've done the pre-self-assessment. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to say down here, restrict access, add restriction, activity completion, they have to have taken the self-assessment. My mouse is going crazy. The chapter 5 self-assessment must be marked complete before they can get into this activity. So I'm not going to poke this one in the eye because it's going to be one that I want them to see, because I'm going to say, oh, you have to do that next. And I want them to see that it's not available unless the I can't, or unless, sorry, it's down here. It's not available until that other one is complete. I don't know what just happened there. I thought I said okay. Oh, this isn't even the same activity that I was looking at a second ago. Going a little bit crazy. Let's see if I can find it. Memory day. It should have been this one right there. What is system RAM? I guess I'm clicked on the wrong one. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to restrict access to this until you've done the Chapter 5 self-assessment. Okay, student must do the Chapter 5 and it must be marked complete. Okay, and I'm also at the same time going to track activity completion on this. So I'm going to say it's complete when a student has viewed this activity. So I'm going to save and return to course. And if you don't have activity completion on, you can't make it a subsequent thing. So you can see they can't do this until they've done the self-assessment. And when they do this, they get credit for it, so then I can have the next thing open up. So I can have those things happen sequentially. They don't see everything at one time. They don't kind of get inundated with tons of things on the web page at once, because they don't see the next thing until I've done the previous thing. They have to complete things in order in my class. I say in order, but I could have the restrictions point all over the place. It doesn't have to be linear, but I can make it so things just don't appear out of nowhere. They appear out of nowhere because you did something. And I don't have to uncheck. Normally I'd go through here and I'd be checking in the eyeball all these things as we move forward in the class. And now I can go through and just make them restricted so it happens on their own. So along with that, you can see all the things I just updated today. Along with that, I can make badges have requirements of doing some of those things, completing them with a certain grade, doing it so many times, finishing all this stuff, so that when you get done, you get something else. It's not all about grades. Research has shown that students are more receptive to gamification in the class than they are with the grade. There aren't a lot of students. Now, we all have good students that are worried about their grades, but not every student is. Many students could care less about their grades, especially if you have a lot of seniors in the class and a class that's not required. But it's amazing how much competition there's been when all of a sudden there's levels, and the highest level isn't put in charge of a group or gets to choose who's on their team. So it gives them other control, that there's other ways that we don't have easy ways to do that, and they have control of it to do them themselves. There are other restrictions, but they're all based on activity completion or multiple activity completion, and I'll show you that as well on multiple things. So let's say this motherboard project. I want to go and change the settings on here. So I don't want this to show up until they're ready for it. So I'm going to make a restrict access. But I can add a lot of restrictions. So I can say right now the grade on, and you see I can be very specific on anything now. This is not activity completion grade. This is an actual grade. So I can say on the, I got to find something that's graded. On the memory project, they have to have a grade that's greater than, I can say 90, this is percent. I can also say it has to be less than 95. I don't know why you do that, but you can see that you can make it a range on a grade on a very specific assignment. You can add multiple restrictions. You can say you also have to be in, I just did group, that's not what I wanted. Or I did a grade again, I'm sorry. Let's see, add a restriction, group. And I can say only 1-1 is getting this item. I can add another restriction. I can say that on the user profile field, your city has to be equal to New Paris. So I could have one that the people that live in El Dorado don't get to do. I don't know why I would do that, but I could. And you can see you could do it on any profile field, okay, that's in their profile. There's not a lot of those that we use, so I'm not sure how you would use a profile field other than saying a city that they live in. You can say that it has to be after a certain date. You can add other activities on there just like we've done before. And you can say they have to match all of them or any of them is your option there too. And I don't know why you do any, but I don't know. Maybe you could. And again, if I have these eyeballs closed, I'm saying they don't even know about that. They just have to meet those things in order for them to see it even show up. And if I have those eyeballs undone, then they'll see that the activity is there and they have to do that, and they have to do that, and they have to do that in order to proceed on to that particular thing. Sorry about that. Can't control announcements. So I guess that is what I really wanted to talk about today, is this activity completion and restrictions, and give you some ideas of what you could use it for. There are tons of ways to use this. You could just use completion. You can't use restrictions. It'd be hard to use restrictions without completion, although there's some graded things that you're going to be able to do anyway, even without that. So there obviously are some restrictions you could use without activity completion, but I think you still have to have it turned on to see the restrictions. Two new things in Moodle: they allow us to do a lot of gamification stuff and allow us to reach out and do a lot of other things as well. And I wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to see some of those new things that we have in the new version of Moodle. That's all I got on those. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'm always here late on Tuesdays for various items as well as Tech Tuesday presentations. Please feel free to stop by or email me anytime, and I'll try to get to your personal plan period if it works in my schedule to help you out then as well. Thanks.